The sheriff found him sleeping under the bridge on Route 9. His coat was torn at the shoulder. His boots had no laces. The cardboard sign beside him said nothing about service. It just said, "Hungry, please help." Deputy Collins kicked the man's foot. "Move along, old man. You can't stay here." The man opened his eyes. He didn't speak. He just stared. Collins stepped back without knowing why. His name was Ray Collier. 71 years old. No home, no family. No one in town knew him. He'd been sleeping rough for 3 weeks since the bus dropped him in Cedar Hollow. The shelter was full. The church had no beds, so he stayed where the road met the woods. People drove past him every morning. No one stopped. Ray didn't beg. He didn't ask for anything. He just sat on the low stone wall near the gas station with his hands folded in his lap. His face was weathered, deep lines around his eyes. His hair was gray and too long. He smelled like rain and old smoke. The owner of the gas station, a man named Frank, came out one afternoon. "You can't sit here all day. You're scaring customers." Ray looked at him. "I'm not on your property," he said quietly. Frank's face went red. "Don't get smart with me. I'll call the cops." Ray stood slowly. His knees cracked. He walked to the edge of the woods without another word. Frank watched him go and muttered something under his breath. That evening, a lawyer's car pulled up near the wall. A woman in a gray suit stepped out. She carried a folder. She looked around, confused. "I'm looking for Raymond Collier," she said to no one. A teenager pointed toward the trees. "That homeless guy, he's over there." She walked into the woods carefully. Her heels sank into the dirt. She found Ray sitting against a pine tree. He was chewing on a piece of jerky. "Mr. Collier." He looked up. "My name is Angela Frost. I'm an estate attorney from Harrisburg." Ray said nothing. She opened the folder. "Your uncle, Edward Collier, passed away 2 months ago. You're listed as his sole heir." Ray blinked. "I don't have an uncle." "You did. He was your father's older brother. He left you property, a cabin, 300 acres up near Blackridge Mountain." Ray stared at her. "Why?" "I don't know," he didn't say, "but it's yours, legally, free and clear." She handed him the papers. Ray didn't take them. "I don't want it." Angela crouched down so she could see his face. "Mr. Collier, you're living in the woods. This is a home, land, it's worth something." Ray finally took the folder. "Where is it?" 40 miles north. The address is inside. Keys are with the county clerk." She stood and brushed the dirt off her knees. "There's one more thing. Your uncle left a letter. He said you'd understand when you got there." She placed a sealed envelope on top of the folder. Then she left. Ray didn't go right away. He stayed under the bridge for 2 more nights. He read the letter by flashlight. It was short. "Ray, I know we never met. Your father and I didn't talk after the war, but I followed your life from a distance. I know what you did. I know what it cost. The cabin is quiet. No one bothers you up there. The woods remember men like us. Don't let it go to waste." Ada. Ray folded the letter and put it in his coat. The next morning, he walked to the clerk's office. The clerk was a young woman with bright nails and a bored expression. "Collier, yeah, I got the keys, sign here." Ray signed. She handed him a brass key on a plain ring. "It's way up Logging Road 12. You'll need a truck or good boots." "I'll walk," Ray said. She looked at him like he was joking. He wasn't. It took him 2 days to reach the cabin. The road turned to gravel, then to dirt, then to nothing. The trees got thicker. The air got colder. He saw deer tracks, coyote scat, old stone markers half buried in moss. No people. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by spruce and hemlock. It was small, 1 room, a metal roof, a stone chimney. The door was locked. Ray used the key. Inside, the air smelled like cedar and dust. There was a cot, a wood stove, a table, one chair. On the wall above the stove, there was a rifle. A Remington 700. Ray stood very still. He walked over slowly. He lifted it off the pegs. It was clean, oiled. The scope was still calibrated. Beneath it, on a wooden shelf, there was a tin box. Ray opened it. Inside were 5 photographs. 4 of them showed a man in a ghillie suit lying in tall grass. The same man standing beside a Huey helicopter. The same man with his arm around another soldier. The 5th photo was different. It showed 2 boys, maybe 8 and 10 years old, standing in front of a farmhouse. Ray recognized his father. The other boy must have been Eid. Ray put the photos back. He sat down on the cot. For the first time in months, he closed his eyes and felt safe. 3 weeks passed. Ray chopped wood, fixed the roof, cleared brush from around the cabin. He didn't go into town. He didn't need anything. The woods were full of game. He set snares. He knew how to live quietly. One morning, he heard voices. He stepped outside. 2 men were walking up the trail. Both carried rifles. Both wore hunter orange. They stopped when they saw him. "Didn't know anyone lived up here," the taller one said. Ray didn't answer. "This is Collier land now," Ray said. "Yeah, we heard. Used to be old Ead's place. He didn't mind hunters." "I do." The shorter man laughed. "Relax, Pops, it's public forest past the ridge. We're just cutting through." Ray looked at them. "Not anymore." The tall man's smile faded. "You can't stop us. It's federal land past your fence line." "Then stay past it." The men looked at each other. "Whatever," the short one muttered. They walked past him. Ray watched them go. 2 days later, the tall man came back. His name was Kurt. He owned a hunting supply store in Cedar Hollow. He knocked on Ray's door. Ray opened it but didn't step aside. "Look," Kurt said, "I don't want trouble, but you can't block access to the ridge. People have been hunting that trail for 20 years. Not through my land." Kurt's jaw tightened. Ead never had a problem with it. "Ead's dead." Kurt stared at him. "You know what? Fine. We'll go around. But you're making enemies, old man. People around here don't forget." He turned and left. A week later, someone shot at Ray's cabin. It was just after dawn. Ray was splitting wood near the stove. The bullet punched through the window and buried itself in the far wall. Ray dropped to the floor. He waited. No second shot. He crawled to the rifle on the wall. He loaded it. He moved to the door and looked out through the crack. Nothing. He stepped outside slowly, rifle low. The woods were silent. Ray walked the perimeter. He found boot prints near the trail, fresh, size 11, deep tread. He followed them for half a mile. Then he stopped. The tracks split. One set went east, the other looped back toward town. Ray knelt down. He studied the prints. The weight distribution, the stride length. 2 men, both about 180 pounds, moving fast but not running. He stood. Then he walked back to the cabin. That night, Ray didn't sleep inside. He took the rifle and moved into the woods. He found a position on a low ridge 300 yards from the cabin. He had a clear view of the clearing and both trails. He lay down in the leaves. He pulled his coat over his shoulders. The air smelled like frost and pine sap. He waited. At 2 in the morning, they came back. 2 shapes moving through the trees, flashlights off, trying to stay quiet. They weren't very good at it. Ray watched them through the scope. They stopped at the edge of the clearing. One of them picked up a rock. He threw it at the cabin. It hit the roof with a dull thud. They waited. Nothing happened. The second man stepped forward. He raised his rifle toward the cabin. Ray put the crosshairs on the man's shoulder. He didn't fire. He shifted the scope 6 inches to the right. Then he squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked through the trees. The bullet hit the tree next to the man's head. Bark exploded. Both men hit the ground. Ray worked the bolt. He chambered another round. He fired again. This time, the bullet hit the dirt 2 feet in front of them. One of the men screamed. They scrambled to their feet and ran. Ray watched them disappear into the dark. He stayed in position until dawn. By noon, the sheriff was at the cabin. His name was Hodge. He was 58, gray mustache, tired eyes. Ray was sitting on the porch. Hodge got out of his truck slowly. "Mr. Collier." Ray nodded. "Got a report you fired on 2 men last night." "They fired first." Hodge looked at the cabin. He saw the broken window. "They say you shot at them without warning." "I gave them warning. They didn't take it." Hodge sighed. "Look, I know you're new here, but people don't like being told where they can and can't hunt, especially not by someone they don't know." Ray looked at him. "They shot at my home. They say it was a warning shot. So were mine." Hodge rubbed his face. "Did you hit them?" "No." "Did you try to?" Ray said nothing. Hodge studied him for a long moment. "Where'd you serve?" Ray blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Ray hesitated. "Marines, long time ago." Hodge nodded slowly. "What unit?" Ray didn't answer. Hodge waited. Finally, Ray spoke. "Scout Sniper, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines." Hodge went very still. "Vietnam." "Yeah." Hodge looked at the rifle leaning against the porch rail. "That your uncle's gun?" "It is now." Hodge was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "He'd never talked about it, but I knew. He had the same eyes you do." Ray didn't respond. Hodge turned toward his truck. "I'll talk to Kurt and his buddy. They won't bother you again." "And if they do?" Hodge looked back. "Then I'll arrest them, not you." He drove away. Word spread fast. By the end of the week, everyone in Cedar Hollow knew about Ray Collier. The homeless man who'd inherited Eats' cabin. The man who'd put 2 warning shots so close to Kurt's head that Kurt had nightmares about it. The man who'd been a Marine sniper. No one said it out loud. But hunters stopped using the trail past Ray's land. They went around the long way. And when people saw Ray in town, buying supplies, filling a water jug, they didn't look at him the same way anymore. They didn't smile. But they nodded. Kurt came back one more time. It was early December. Snow had started to fall. He parked his truck at the end of the trail and walked up to the cabin. Ray was outside stacking wood. Kurt stopped 10 feet away. "I'm not here to fight," he said. Ray straightened. Kurt shifted his weight. "I talked to some people, old-timers. They told me about your uncle, what he did over there, what you probably did too." Ray said nothing. Kurt looked down. "I didn't know. I thought you were just some drifter squatting on Eats' land. I didn't mean disrespect." Ray wiped his hands on his pants. "You shot at my house." "I know, that was stupid, I'm sorry." Ray watched him. Kurt swallowed. "If you want, I'll pay for the window." Ray shook his head. "Already fixed it." Kurt nodded. "Okay." He turned to leave. Then he stopped. "For what it's worth, thank you for your service." Ray didn't answer. Kurt walked back to his truck. Winter came hard that year. The snow piled up past the windows. The wind howled through the trees. Ray kept the stove burning. He read old paperbacks he found in a box under the cot. He cleaned the rifle every 3 days even though he didn't fire it. On Christmas Eve, someone left a box on his porch. Inside were canned goods, coffee, and a bottle of whiskey. No note. Ray brought it inside. He opened the whiskey and poured a small glass. He sat by the stove and looked at the fire. He thought about Eid, about his father, about the men he'd known who never made it home. He raised the glass. Then he drank. Spring came slowly. The snow melted, the trails opened up. Ray started seeing deer again, turkey tracks, fox dens near the ridge. One morning, he found fresh boot prints near the southern trail. He followed them. They led to a tree where someone had carved initials, JH plus AM. Beneath it was a small cairn of stones. Ray didn't touch it. He just stood there for a while. Then he walked back to the cabin. People still talked about him in town. The sniper on the mountain. The man no one bothered. But the stories changed. They weren't about fear anymore. They were about respect. About a man who'd earned his silence, who'd been forgotten by the world, and who'd found a place where forgetting didn't matter. Ray never left the mountain again. He didn't need to. The woods gave him everything, and in return he gave them peace. In late April, a young man appeared on the trail. He was maybe 25, thin, pale. He wore an army jacket that didn't fit right. Ray was clearing brush near the creek when he saw him. The young man stopped walking. He looked lost. Ray set down the axe. "You're on private land," Ray said. The young man flinched. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I was looking for someone." "Who?" "A guy named Collier, Raymond Collier." Ray studied him. "Why?" The young man shifted his weight. His hands were shaking. "My grandfather knew him, or knew of him, he told me, if I ever needed help, to find the man on Blackridge." Ray didn't move. "What kind of help?" The young man looked at the ground. "I got back 6 months ago. Afghanistan, I can't sleep. I can't stay inside. Everyone keeps telling me to get over it." His voice cracked. Ray was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "What's your name?" "Miller, Danny Miller." Ray nodded. "There's a fallen oak about a mile east. Good place to sit, quiet." Danny looked up. That's it. That's it." Danny hesitated. "Can I come back?" Ray picked up the axe. "If you need to." Danny stood there a moment longer. Then he nodded and walked back down the trail. Danny came back 3 days later. He didn't say much. He just sat on the porch while Ray worked. After an hour, he left. The next week, he came again. This time, he stayed longer. Ray made coffee. They drank it in silence. On the third visit, Danny finally spoke. "Does it ever stop?" Ray looked at him. "What?" "The dreams, the feeling like you're still there." Ray set down his cup. "No." Danny's face fell. "But you learn to carry it," Ray said. "You stop fighting it, you let it sit, and some days it's lighter than others." Danny stared at the trees. "I shot a kid," he said quietly. 14 years old. He had a rifle. He was aiming at my sergeant. I did what I was trained to do." His hands were shaking again. "But I still see his face." Ray didn't look away. "You'll see it for the rest of your life." Danny's eyes filled. "How do you live with that?" Ray was quiet. Then he said, "You don't live with it. You live beside it. You make space for it. You don't let it be the only thing." Danny wiped his face. They sat there until the sun dropped behind the ridge. Danny kept coming. Once a week, sometimes twice. He didn't always talk. Sometimes he just sat and listened to the wind. Ray didn't push him. One afternoon, Ray handed him the axe. "You want to feel useful, split that pile." Danny looked at the woodpile, then at Ray. He took the axe. He worked for an hour. His form was bad, but he didn't stop. When he finished, he was breathing hard, sweating. But his hands weren't shaking anymore. Ray nodded. "You'll sleep tonight." Danny did. By summer, other men started showing up. Word had spread quietly, the way it always does among veterans. There was a place on Blackridge Mountain, a man who understood, who didn't ask questions, who didn't try to fix you. Ray never invited them. But he never turned them away either. They came alone, they sat, they worked, they left. Some came once. Some came every week. Ray learned their names but didn't ask their stories. If they wanted to talk, he listened. If they didn't, he let them be. One man brought seeds. They planted a small garden behind the cabin. Another man helped Ray expand the porch. A third brought tools and fixed the stove. No one asked for anything in return. The sheriff came by again in July. He parked his truck and got out slowly. Ray was sitting on the porch with Danny and two other men. Hodge looked at them. "Heard you've been getting visitors." "I have." Hodge nodded. "Anyone complaining?" "No." "Anyone causing trouble?" "No." Hodge looked at the garden, the new porch, the neat stacks of wood. "Good," he said. He got back in his truck. Before he left, he rolled down the window. "For what it's worth, Ray, what you're doing here matters." Ray didn't answer. Hodge drove away. In August, a man named Petty showed up. He was older, maybe 60. He had a limp and a scar across his jaw. He didn't say much at first. But on his third visit, he brought a box. Inside were old photographs, letters, dog tags. "My son," Petty said, "Iraq 2006. Ray looked at the photos, a young man in uniform, smiling. "He didn't make it home," Petty said, "and I didn't know what to do with his things. I couldn't throw them away, but I couldn't keep looking at them either." He wiped his eyes. "I thought maybe they'd be safe here." Ray closed the box carefully. "They will be." Petty nodded. He never came back. But the box stayed on the shelf inside the cabin, next to the tin with Ede's photographs. By fall, the cabin had become something Ray never intended. A place where broken men could sit without being judged. Where silence was understood. Where no one asked you to be anything other than what you were. Ray didn't call it a mission. He didn't call it healing. He just called it the cabin. One cold morning in October, Ray woke to the sound of footsteps. He reached for the rifle. But when he looked out the window, he saw a familiar face. "Kurt." Ray opened the door. Kurt stood there, hands in his pockets. "Morning," he said. Ray waited. "I heard what you've been doing, the men you've been helping." Ray said nothing. Kurt shifted his weight. "My nephew just got back, Marines. He's not doing well. His mom doesn't know what to do." Ray looked at him. "Can I bring him up here?" Kurt asked. "Just to talk or sit, whatever he needs." Ray was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "Bring him." Kurt's shoulders dropped. "Thank you." He turned to leave. Then he stopped. "I was wrong about you, Ray. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." Ray watched him walk back down the trail. The seasons turned. Winter came again. The men kept coming. Ray kept the stove burning. He didn't ask their names anymore. He didn't need to. They were all the same. Men who'd carried weight no one else could see. Men the world had moved on from. Men who just needed a place to sit. One night, Danny brought a bottle of whiskey. There were 4 other men on the porch. They passed the bottle around. No one spoke for a long time. Then one of the men said, "Why do you do this?" Ray looked at him. "Do what?" "Let us come here, help us. You don't know us, you don't owe us anything." Ray was quiet. Then he said, "Someone did it for me once, long time ago." "Who?" Ray looked at the trees. "A staff sergeant in Da Nang. I was 19, I just made my first kill. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I thought I was broken." He paused. "He took me to a bunker on the edge of camp. We sat there all night. He didn't say a word, just sat with me. And when the sun came up, he looked at me and said, 'You're not broken, you're just awake now.'" Ray took the bottle and drank. "I didn't understand it then, but I do now." The men were silent. Danny wiped his eyes. Years passed. Ray got older. His hands got stiffer, his back hurt more. But the men kept coming. And Ray kept the door open. One spring morning, Ray didn't wake up. Danny found him in the cabin, sitting in the chair by the stove, his hands folded in his lap. The rifle was on the wall, clean, oiled. The photographs were on the shelf. There was no note. The funeral was small. Just a few men from the mountain, the sheriff, Kurt, the lawyer who'd brought Ray the cabin. They buried him on the ridge above the clearing. No headstone, just a cairn of stones. Danny carved something into the largest one. "Our Collier, USMC, he carried us home." The cabin still stands. The men still come. They keep the stove burning, they chop the wood, they tend the garden. And when new men arrive, lost, broken, looking for something they can't name, the others just point to the chair by the fire. And they say, "Sit. Ray would have wanted you here." The woods are quiet now. The hunters stay on the trails. And on cold nights, when the wind moves through the trees, some say you can still hear the sound of an old man splitting wood, or the soft crack of a rifle scope being calibrated, or the silence of men who finally found a place to rest. The cabin endures, because some places aren't just land. They're promises kept by men the world forgot, but who never forgot each other.